When's the old guy tells the dirty jokes coming in? And we've been requested him many times. He's a musician. He's a trumpet player. Played at the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. He'll come down here in a minute. He toured with Phil Collins. He played with Quincy Jones. I met Quincy Jones with him. He has played with Tony Bennett. He has played with some of the greatest entertainers in the world. He was at Northern Illinois University. He ran the jazz ensemble there. Was a teacher and just a brilliant guy. And he came up to me. It was in 2006, and it was a show had just ended. And he walked up to me and he said, "You can come on out, Ron, if you want to." He came up to me and he said, "Oh, there he is." You want the red one or the black one? So Ron came up to me and he goes, "Hey, Les," he goes, "Look, I'm a musician, I've done all this." He goes, "But I can tell jokes. I can tell jokes as long as you want me to tell jokes, and I'm bored to death. I'm down here retired, I'm just bored. Can I come tell some jokes?" And so, is this thing on? Yeah. And so I said, "Yeah, you remember?" I said, "Yeah, come in on open mic night. I'll give you 5 minutes to tell some jokes." Got up on open mic night, killed. I said, "Okay, come back next week, I'll let you do 10 minutes. Killed. I said, how much time you got?" He goes, "How much do you want me to do?" "I don't care, I tell jokes as long as you want me to tell jokes." So I brought him in on a Friday late show. That's the rowdiest crowd of the week. Steve Martin famously said to Johnny Carson, Johnny asked him, "Why did you quit doing stand-up comedy?" And Steve Martin said, "Friday night late shows." I said, "Friday night late show." I said, "Ron, you can do 10 minutes, you can bail in 5 minutes, or you can do 20 minutes. He did 20 minutes. And from then on, he's been working here as a professional comedian the entire time. So for some of the greatest headliners, they all love Ron. And tomorrow's your 90th birthday. He says this might be his last show. I say, bullshit. Ron Modell, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. I can listen to him all night because I was born in the Bronx, New York. And his accent just kills me. I mean, when you talk to him, and I've heard him do this, and you ask him where it comes from, you know, I would say Chattanooga, Tennessee. He'll say, Chattanooga, Tennessee. He told me a couple of months ago he did a benefit over at the Ritz-Carlton. He was a little late getting there, and as he kind of rushed through the lobby, he accidentally bumped into a woman, and his elbow went right into her breast. And into this wonderful southerly gentleman, he said, "Ma'am, if your heart is as soft as your breast, I know you'll forgive me." To which she immediately said, "Sir, if your penis is as hard as your elbow, I'm in room 231. You know, getting old is not fun. We all know that. But there are a few perks. Like this old man who went to interview with a job with a human resources manager who immediately asked the old man in one word, "What is your weakness?" And the old man said, "Honesty." And the manager said, "I don't think honesty is a weakness." And the old man said, "You know what? I don't give a shit what you think." Does anybody in the room know where Swiss yodeling started? This is a very funny story. Swiss traveling salesman was on top of a Swiss mountain trying to find a place to rent a room. And he finally met a farmer, and the farmer said to him, "I'll rent you a room if you promise not to touch my daughter." So the next morning, the farmer was having breakfast with his wife and his daughter, and after a while, he could tell that his daughter had been had, and he finally got her to admit it, and as soon as she did, he rushed out of the house, went to the side of the mountain, looked down, about halfway down the traveling salesman was, and he hollered, "You son of a bitch bastard, you screwed my daughter." And the salesman turned around and said, "And your old lady too." Let me tell you, I don't go to the beach anymore. Not because of the hurricanes or anything. My beautiful wife, Kathy, loves to go to the beach. I don't like to go to the beach because I am so jealous of these 25-year-old blue-eyed guys with a little bikini. And the joke was that this one beautiful 25-year-old guy came out to the beach to get the best suntan he was ever going to have. And when he got home that evening, he stripped off his little bikini, looked in the full-length mirror, and it looked ridiculous. From the top of his head to the top of his crotch was a beautiful suntan. From the bottom of his crotch to his toes was a beautiful suntan. This part all white. So the next day he went back to the beach, but he went to an area where nobody comes, stripped down naked, buried himself in the sand up to here, but left this area totally open. It didn't take him 10 minutes, he fell asleep. And about 15 minutes later, here came two 80-year-old biddies picking seashells, and one said to the other, "Margaret, come here, you're not going to believe this." She said, "Will you look at that? When we were 20, we were afraid of it. When we were 40, we couldn't get enough of it. When we were 60, we had to pay to get it. Now we're 80 years old and it's growing wild on the beach." I have to tell you my favorite doctor jokes. A guy went into a doctor's office, he never was there before, and the doctor said to him, "What's your problem?" He said, "I'm having terrible headaches." He said, "What are your symptoms?" So he told him, and the doctor said, "I used to have the identical headaches, same symptom. I'll tell you what I did. You want to try it for a couple of weeks? Come back and see me." He said, "Okay." So 2 weeks later, the guy came back. He said, "Doctor," he said, "What did you do? What did you do, doctor?" He said, "Every night before I went to sleep, I put my head between my wife's breasts and I did this 2 or 3 times." So the guy left. 2 weeks went by. He came back to see the doctor. He said, "Doctor, you're a miracle worker. I haven't had a headache for 2 weeks. And by the way, doctor, you have a lovely home." Here's a cardiologist who died, had the most incredible ceremony at the memorial. Right in front of the coffin was an arrangement of flowers in the shape of a heart. And as soon as the eulogy was over, the heart opened up, the casket just slid in, and the heart closed up. And immediately one of the mourners, a male mourner, started laughing like hell, laughing like hell. And of course, every eye went to him. And finally, when he got himself under control, everybody was totally silent. He looked at everybody and he said, "I'm sorry. I just thought about my own funeral. I'm a gynecologist." He said the proctologist fainted. Now, one night, my beautiful wife, Kathy, and I were staying up late on a cable station looking for something. And all of a sudden, here was a marvelous video of Red Fox, you know, from Sanford and Son. But he wasn't doing Sanford and Son. He was doing his nightclub act from Vegas. And he talked about this black woman talking to her black doctor. And she said, "Doctor, I don't think the hormone treatment you're giving me is working properly." And the doctor said, "Why do you say that?" She said, "Because I've started to grow hair down my chest." And the doctor said, "Well, how far down does it go? She said, to my dick. You know, it was 11 days ago, we had Halloween. Think of a guy, you know, New York people have a reputation of being wise-ass. So here's this little guy living in Mayaca who writes a big costume company in Manhattan, New York. Please send me a costume for Halloween. So 3 days later, he gets a big box, he opens it up, and it's the outfit of a pirate. And he doesn't even take it out, he just puts a note in and says, I know you couldn't have known this, but I have a peg leg. If I put that pirate outfit on, everybody's gonna stare at my peg leg all night. Can you send me something different? So 3 days later, we got a new box. It had the outfit of a monk. He put that one back in with a little note, said, I know you couldn't have known this, but I got a bald head. And if I wear that monk's outfit, everybody's gonna stare at my bald head all night. Can you send me something different? 3 days later, he gets a smaller box with a little bottle of molasses and a note that says, rub the molasses in your bald head, stick your peg leg up your ass and go as a candy apple. That's New York. Here's my favorite Halloween joke. In Ireland, in a little tiny village, they're picking pumpkins all day, people working at this place. And this one young man doesn't realize that it's gotten dark. Everybody's gone home, and he's standing looking around, and all of a sudden he just realizes he's really horny, hornier than he's ever been. So he takes a little small pumpkin, takes out his knife, makes a little hole in it, and starts. 10 seconds later, the town constable comes up, taps him on the shoulder, he says, Michael, do you realize you're fucking a pumpkin? He said, oh my God, is it midnight already? Cinderella. How about, you know, people always ask me, where do jokes come from? And my wife and I, when we were going about a year and a half, we took our first vacation together and went to Sanibel Island, which is so beautiful. Anyway, we met this old Jewish couple, 86 years old, both of them. They were celebrating their 55th wedding anniversary, and we got to know them. Now, the most important thing about this joke is try to visualize what the woman looked like. Her name was it was Murray and Becky. And Becky was about 5 feet tall, maybe. And she had the most beautiful, elegant gray silver hair. And when you walked in her condo, she had done 20 watercolors of Sanibel. They were the most exquisite. Anyway, we got to know them real well. And on Thursday, she said, Murray and I would like for you to come up to our condo because we know you're flying back to Chicago tomorrow and have lunch with us. And we did. And after lunch, we all went in the living room, and this marvelous woman, Becky, looked at me and said, you've told Murray and I such great jokes. Can I tell you my favorite? Now think about this one. I said, of course. She said it was about a mailman. It was his last day on the route. He was retiring. And when he got to this one woman's condo, she opened the door, she pulled him in, she locked the door, she took him up to the bedroom, made mad passionate love, brought him down to the dining room, fed him a very elegant lunch. And after lunch, she went to her purse and took out a single dollar bill and gave it to the mailman. And the mailman said, I'm not complaining. It's been a wonderful experience, but what the hell's going on? She said, well, before my husband left this morning, I told him you were retiring, it was your last day. And I said to my husband, what should we give the mailman? He said, fuck him, give him $1. She said, the lunch is I mean, many years ago, Kathy and her girlfriends went up to Wisconsin for a golf weekend. And they came home Sunday night. Very innocently, I said to her, "What else did you do besides playing golf?" She said, "Well, we went to the town, had dinner and drinks. Then we came back to the cabin, we played cards, and we told women's stories." I said, "What's a woman's story?" She said, "This is a typical woman's story. A woman 50 years old went for her yearly checkup with her doctor. When she got home, she ran up to the bedroom, stripped down naked, was admiring herself in the full-length mirror when her husband walked by and said, 'What the hell are you doing?' She said, 'I went to the doctor today for my yearly checkup, and he told me I had the breasts of a 21-year-old. He said, 'Really? What did he say about that 50-year-old ass of yours?' She said, 'We didn't ask about you.'" I want to tell you some World War II stories because I was a kid, you know. But any of you that ever saw Buddy Hackett perform, Buddy Hackett used to tell a wonderful story. If anybody in the room has been in the military, you'll love this because it was before telephone IDs. But this one day, 1944, this private on his base picked up his phone, he called and he said, "Hey, I got 4 Jeeps and 4 half-tracks for all them dumbass colonels over there." And the guy on the other end of the line said, "Do you know who you're talking to?" He said, "No, who is this?" He said, "This is Colonel Hudson." He said, "Do you know who you're talking to?" He said, "No." He said, "Goodbye, dumbass." Towards the end of the war, 1945, Hollywood was making a whole bunch of propaganda films where you saw the B-24 bombers going over and bombing Berlin and the big major cities. And in every single movie, I'm not kidding, there would be one part of the movie where when they got near the target area, the pilot would say to the bombardier, "It's your airplane," giving him control to steer the plane over the target area and drop the bombs. Well, on this one bombing run, the bombardier was a stutterer. So in the movie, he says, "Okay, bombardier, it's your airplane." So he's looking in the scope there. He says, "Ready? Aim." Fuck it, we'll get it on the way back. He was a young soldier, 1946. He was based in Sicily, Italy. So he went back to visit Sicily and he went to the house of ill fame. And he said to the madam, "Do you still have a girl working here named Rini Quintoni?" She said, "Yeah, she's in room 3. So he went over and knocked on the door, room 3, beautiful girl. "Are you Rini Quintoni?" "Yes." Went in, just screwed the shit out of her, gave her $200 American, which was worth a fortune. Came back the next day, she ravaged him. She couldn't do enough. Gave her another $200. She said, "Will I see you tomorrow?" He said, "Yeah." The third day, absolutely, she went wild with this guy. And then when they finished, she said, "Tomorrow?" He said, "No, tomorrow I gotta go home to the States." She said, "I used to live in the States. Where do you live?" He said, I live in Brooklyn, New York, in the Bensonhurst section." She said, "You're kidding. What's your address?" She said, 1521 Lafayette Avenue. She said, "Oh my God, my parents have an apartment in that building." He said, "I know, your mother gave me $600 to give you when I saw you." Let me tell you about New York as a kid growing up. This is a fourth grade graders, okay, fourth graders, I'm 9 years old. And on Friday afternoon at 10 minutes to 3, the teacher, who's really sadistic, says, all right, class, here's the last question of the week. If anybody can answer it correctly, the whole class gets Monday off. And then she says, name all the capital cities in Europe. And it was always a question every Friday of that magnitude. So one Thursday night, one of these little kids in the Bronx, a 9-year-old kid, takes a whole bunch of ping pong balls and spray paints them black. The next day she comes in at 10 minutes to 3, she said, all right, class, here's the last question of the week. If anybody can answer it, the class gets Monday off. And before she can get the question out, he throws them up to the front of the room and they're bouncing around. And the teacher says, all right, who's the comedian with the black balls? He says, Bill Cosby, and we'll see you Tuesday. Let's go up a couple of grades. 6th grade is 12-year-old kids. And the teacher says, when you come to school tomorrow, I want you to be able to use the word beautiful in a sentence 2 times. So they come in the next day and she says, John hops up. He says, teacher, my parents bought a beautiful home in a beautiful neighborhood. Very good. Mary stands up. She says, my mother bought me a beautiful dress and told me I look very beautiful. Good. Irving. This little Jewish kid stands up. He says, hey, teach. My sister came home last night and told my father her period was late. And my father said, beautiful. Fucking beautiful. Here's another kid's story that's great. I'm going to get out of New York for a minute, but you know, every May they have the running of the Kentucky Derby in Lexington, Kentucky, at Churchill Downs. So they decide in this school in Lexington to take their 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders on a field trip to Churchill Downs to show them what a racetrack looks like. So you're talking about kids 8, 9, and 10 years old. So they get there and they're there about a half an hour. And one teacher says to the other, Miss Lyons, we've been here a half an hour. I think we ought to give the children a potty break. She said, okay, you take the girls, I'll take the boys. So Miss Lyons took the boys, sent them into the men's room. And immediately an 8-year-old came out and said, Miss Lyons, we can't reach the urinals, they're too high. So the teacher took a look in. All she saw was her students, so she went in. She picked up this little 8-year-old kid, she unzipped him, she took his thing out, she's holding him as he's going. And then she took another student, another student, another student, another student. All of a sudden, she got one that was really well endowed. She said, you must be in 5th. He said, actually, lady, I'm riding a horse in a 7 called Santa. Let's go back to New York for a minute. Here's a beautiful girl in her mid-20s about to jump off a pier and commit suicide. And this sailor at the last second grabs her. He says, lady, I don't know what your troubles are, but nothing is worth giving up your life for. Now we're leaving for Europe in a few hours if you want. I'll stow you away, and when we get to Europe, you can have a whole new life. She says, okay. So he stows her away, and the first 3 days go by. The 4th day, the captain decides to inspect every single boat on the ship. When he gets to this particular boat, he lifts up the canvas, looks at her, and says, who the hell are you, and what are you doing here? She said, one of your sailors stowed me away until we reached Europe. He's been feeding me 3 times a day and screwing me every night. And the captain said, he sure has. This is the Staten Island ferry. In 1950, 1950. I was 15 years old. And I was going to have my very first engagement as a trumpeter. I was going to play a bar mitzvah in the Bronx. And my father, who I loved so dearly, my father was such a great man. And he was a New York taxi driver. He drove in Times Square every night. Anyway, he came up to me the day before the bar mitzvah and he said, I want to ask you one special thing. I don't care what kind of music you play. Symphony, opera, jazz, commercial. Just promise me that you'll never play in a burlesque house. Because you might see something you shouldn't see. So of course, first opportunity I had, I went to a burlesque. What do you think I saw? My father. Now, you know, probably there's people in here, young people that never heard of a burlesque house. Was a place where women would strip and they'd have comics and sing it. But after that, I don't know whether they still have this, but they have strip bars where the stripper is actually up on the bar. And this one night, there's an Italian, an Irish, and a Jewish guy sitting at the bar. And she comes out, the first one, and she's barely got anything on. And as she gets close to him, she's rubbing her right cheek of her ass right in his face. And after a few minutes, he takes out a $20 bill. He wets it and he puts it on her right cheek. Now she moves over to the other guy, the Irish guy. She does the same thing on the left cheek, and after a few minutes, he takes out a $20 bill, wets it, puts it on. Now she goes over in front of the Jewish guy. After 2 minutes, the Jewish guy takes out his ATM card, runs it through her ass, takes the $40 and goes away. There's a certain thing about Jewish humor. I mean, it's true for Italians and Polish and everybody else. But I spent 18 summers up in the Catskill Mountains. Here's another funny story that just came to my mind because it was a married couple. They were going to celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary, and the woman asked her husband, can we go to the honeymoon hotel? Oh, he said, fine. So they got on the road and they were going up to the Catskills. All of a sudden she yelled, stop the car. So they stopped the car. She said, don't you remember this field, that fence over there? He said, no. She said, that's where we made love the very first time we ever made love. He said, you want to do it again? She said, yeah. So they got undressed and he put her against the fence. She made moves she never made in her life. When they finished, he said, honey, that was the greatest of all time. She said, sweetheart, 40 years ago, this fence wasn't electric. This 80-year-old Jewish man went for his yearly checkup. When he got home, his wife said to him, so what did the doctor say? He said, I don't know, I got something called herpes. She said, what's herpes? He said, I've never heard of it in my life. She said, wait, I'll get the medical dictionary. So she got it out. Well, here it is, herpes. You don't have to worry. It says here that herpes is a disease of the Gentiles. Is a middle-aged Jewish couple having dinner, and she looked at her husband and she says, what's the matter, you don't look happy? He says, it's our sex life. She said, what's wrong with our sex life? He said, you don't moan anymore. She said, I don't moan. So that night they were making love. When it got to the heated moment of passion, she leaned back and she went, oh, what a long line at Publix today. here's my favorite Jewish joke. There's an old Jewish man in the hospital on his deathbed, and his wife, many, many years, is the only one in the room. He says, Becky, we've been together since we were 11 years old. You've always been with me. Even after the Germans came, we had to move to Poland. When I looked around, you were there. We bought a nice home, we had a nice business. Then the Nazis killed everybody, we had to leave. We moved to this wonderful country, United States of America. We bought a nice home in Long Island. I had a good business in the garment center. And we had a big house in Long Island, we had money. And then all of a sudden, we had the fire. And we didn't have any insurance. We lost the house, we lost the money. And I looked around and every time, the only one there is you. You're the only one there. So after all these years, Becky, I finally figured out you're a fucking jinx. Now let me tell you, picture in the desert a foreign legion outpost. They get a new company commander, and the first day he wants to inspect the base, so they're walking around and everything. All of a sudden, the captain says to the sergeant, there's a single tent right here in the middle of the compound. What is it doing here? He lifts it up and there's one camel. He said, what is this camel doing here? He said, Captain, out in the middle of the desert, there's 300 men and no women. Things get sticky. You know, just get that goddamn camel out of here. I don't want that kind of crap going. Get it out of here. So 3 months went by, and one night the captain went up to the same sergeant. He said, you were right. Things do get sticky here. What'd you do with the camel I told you to get rid of? He said, we didn't get rid of it. I hope you're not mad. We just hid it out in the back. He said, I'm not mad. Do you suppose I could? He says, come on, I'll take you out there. So they're standing in front of the camel. He says, what do I do first? He says, say to the camel, sit. So he says, sit. The camel goes down. He says, what now? He says, hop on. So he rips off his clothes, screws the shit out of the camel. And he's laying there, and he says to the sergeant, how'd I do? He says, I don't know, because we generally ride it into town to the whorehouse. I'm going to tell you one more, okay? Because you got a wonderful comedian in the wings that's, I've worked with Carmen before, and he's terrific. But this one, first of all, I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. It's special. Believe it or not, 48 of my friends and family are here tonight. And we're as far away as New York, Milwaukee, Connecticut. They all flew in just to spend the weekend and help me celebrate my 90th birthday. Before I tell you my last story, I got to tell you about my wife, my angel. She's my angel my whole life. But she got me one time so bad, you know. You must imagine what it's like living with me. There's a line in my book. If you want to see it, I forgot to bring it tonight, but my biography, my memory book, it's called Love Being Here With You. You can get it through Amazon. It's a marvelous book, and it's got this kind of humor, experiences I had with, I traveled with Tony Bennett and Quincy Jones, and, you know, great stories. But what was I going to tell you just now? Oh, Kathy. before I was going into class. And all I wanted to do was say, I miss you, I can't wait to see you, I love you. So one day, I decided to play a practical joke on her. So I called at 11:30. And I swear to God, she's here, and if you want to meet her, she'll be over here with me later. I called her, and this is the exact conversation with my beautiful wife. Kathy Padlet, Provost Office. I'm coming over there, and I'm going to rip your clothes off in that little cubicle of yours. What are you going to do then? I'm going to rip your underwear off. What are you going to do then? And I proceed to go with the whole thing, and I get to the height of it, and she says, who is this? She got me so good. I swear to God, there was 30 seconds at least of complete silence. And the next thing was me, is this 753-94? But you know what? 2 weeks later, I got her so bad that every secretary came running over to our cubicle to see. She was hysterical. I called her again at not the assigned time, and I said to her, honey, what is it that has a small dick and hangs down? She says, I don't know. I said, a monkey. I said, what is it that has a big dick and hangs up? You guys have been wonderful.
Ron Modell, ladies and
These are from your lovely wife, Kathy.
Ron Modell. Come on out, Ron Modell handlers. I apologize, I forgot in introducing you to let everybody know that you're a big dick Jew from New York. I hope it didn't throw anybody off. Thanks, Ron. Stepson and grandson's helping him out. They don't actually like him, they just want to be in the wheel. You good there, buddy? All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a seat.